Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a review of a fountain pen. It is the Milim brass pocket fountain pen. Milim is a relatively new pen and from a company based out of Poland. Milim Pro have a lovely sort of social presence online, and this is a lovely little brass pocket fountain pen. So I'm going to do a quick review of this. I'm going to show you the pen. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons. I'll do a writing sample, all of that sort of stuff, and yeah, I'll let you know my thoughts on this interesting little pen. So I hope you find this video interesting. Okay, here we have the Milim brass pocket fountain pen. So this is the way it comes in this little glass tube with a couple of little cork ends. It's a really nice little way of packaging the pen. It just comes bubble wrapped and sent out in an envelope. So it's a really interesting little wet pen. Yeah, so basically, as I said, this brand is based in Poland. They're small batch run machined pens. This one comes in brass. It's also available in aluminium and bronze and a couple of other finishes, and they look really great. You can see them on social media like Instagram and all that sort of thing. Check out their Etsy page for more information. Let's just have a look at the pen now. So I'll just take it out of this little tube. So here it is, brass machined pen. I think it's a nice little design. It's nothing sort of flashy, but I think that's part of the point. I think the idea is to be quite minimalist with it, and they've certainly succeeded in that respect. What you see there, the Milim there engraved, is more or less the only branding you're going to get from this actual pen. I think it's really nice, and the logo actually is very classy. I was told on social media that Milim is Hebrew for words, so it's actually quite a nice tie-in to the function of these lovely pens. So this is brass. I'll unscrew the cap. It's got a steel Schmidt nib. I have the medium here, the gold-coloured nib. It's got a basic sort of plastic feed, and it's a small pen. Obviously, the idea of it is to post the pen by screwing it onto the end there, making it a fairly sort of normal sort of sized small pen. So this isn't going to be a pen for sort of long writing sessions or anything like that, because it is quite a small pen, but it is a nice pen, and it's a nice size, and it's certainly got a nice weight to it, which I'll come back to shortly. So yes, the entire pen is made of brass. All the external parts of the pen are made of brass, and it's cylindrical shape with decent machined sort of threads and all of that. The end cap and the finial are both sort of brass from the same piece, and sort of nicely polished. The pen obviously does get a bit of patina being made of brass, and as you can see, mine's starting to pick up some of that. I polished it a week or so ago, and so this is the sort of the second incarnation of that patina. The grip is small. Now it does taper as well, so as you can see, it does narrow towards the nib, and it is quite small, and there is a reasonable sort of step down there. Now if you hold the pen down on that section, that's very narrow, and the distance between your fingertips and the page is small. I tend to hold this slightly further back, so when I hold it, I tend to put my thumb back here on the barrel of the pen, and it gives me a slightly better sort of purchase on the page and a slightly better grip on the pen, but it's not a sort of standard grip. You could hold the entire pen further back, and it would still not be much different to holding a full-size pen. The style of the pen is minimalist. It's all very attractive, it's all nice, and it's not fancy, but it's clean, it's crisp, and it is very, very effective. Now, this pen is a cartridge converter pen. It unscrews here, more brass, nicely machined brass threads, and you have a small converter, which I will come back to, but it has been sort of customized or modified, if you will, with a little bit of extra brass sort of in there. And it's quite a nice little converter, but not perfect. As I said, I will come back to the converter a little bit later. It is a small converter. It doesn't hold a lot of ink, but it is a small pen. It does take standard international cartridges, just the short ones, and there are a few other brands of small converters that this pen could take, such as the Kaweco or perhaps the Monteverde. Let's talk about the specs of the pen now. So it is a small pen. Capped, the pen is 101 millimeters, which is small. Uncapped, it's 98, so it only loses 2 millimeters in posting, which I think is very nice tolerances on the pen. Posted, it's 133. So as I said, we are getting a fairly decent sort of size pen, and it does sort of sit nice and far back. Now, if you hold it back on the barrel, the weight of the pen is quite balanced. It sits nicely in the hand. The further you hold it down, the more back heavy this pen actually gets. The diameter of the section in the middle there is about 8 millimeters. The weight of the pen is 37 grams. Now, when you think that a Lamy Safari weighs in at about 20, the fact that this small pocket pen weighs 37 gives you an idea of just how heavy this pen is. Now that is 26 in the body and 11 in the cap. So you're getting a third of the pen weight almost in the cap, or just over a quarter, between a quarter and a third. So if you are holding this pen down on the section, you will feel the weight just tip back ever so slightly. But the pen, for a very quick jotting, you could use this unposted, but really for anything more than writing a phone number or a couple of words, you are really going to need to post this pen. Let's do a bit of a comparison now, shall we? So this is the Milim brass pocket pen, and in the unboxing or the first impressions video I did, I compared it to two other pocket pens, the Kaweco Lilliput and the Travelers Company brass fountain pen, or the bullet fountain pen. So you can see there that it does compare quite sort of similarly in size to these pens, and then if we post them like they're all designed to be posted, you can see that the Travelers fountain pen does edge out the other two, but this is quite a similar length, just a little bit longer than the Kaweco Lilliput. So if you're familiar with the Lilliput, you'll be familiar with this size pen and know if it's a decent fit for you. One other pen that I compared it to, of course, that we compare sort of every pen to, is the Lamy Safari. Now here is the Lamy Safari unposted. Now there you can see that if you write with the Safari unposted, you are going to be familiar with the length of this pen. The only issue being is the width of this section, and there's not a lot they can do about that. If you are capping this pen, you are going to need a narrow section to stick with the aesthetic of the design, and that's fine, but just beware that if you don't like small sections, even on a pocket pen, this may not be exactly the pen for you. Okay, so let's do a writing sample, and then I'll come back to a couple of other little details that go along with this pen. Here I have some rodeo paper, and let's just do a quick writing sample. So I've got this inked with Diamond Macassar, which is a lovely rich brown ink. Here we have the or Milim Pro, depending on, oh, I'm going to start that again. Milim Pro is where they are on social media. This is a brass fountain pen. It's a pocket pen. Now it has a Schmidt medium steel nib, and I cannot write today at all. That does say steel, I promise. And it is a relatively smooth nib. It's quite got decent sort of flow, a few sort of hard starts occasionally, but nothing sort of really worth worrying about. The pen does dry out if you leave it uncapped, of course. All fountain pens will. Once the water starts to evaporate, you lose that from the pen. But for the most part, it's pretty good, including, you know, have the pen cap. There seems to be a relatively decent sort of cap seal on it. So yeah, it's smooth. It's relatively wet. I wouldn't say it's a gusher by any stretch, but it's certainly wet enough. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Line variation, natural line variation built into the nib. there's none. It's a sort of fairly standard medium nib in that respect. You can't squeeze any out really, it's pretty stiff. Reverse writing is fine, makes it nice fine, and yeah, it's a really nice everyday writing pen. If this was a pen that you had in your pocket or your bag to take notes, you would, you know, quick jot down a phone number, put it with a traveler's notebook, something like that. It's a really lovely option. It's pretty reliable. You might get a bit of a hard start like I had at the start there and just when I was trying to write then, but nothing that, you know, a quick scribble on the page isn't going to get rid of. Now, we'll just do the right-handed sort of writing sample just so you get a sense of that. We've got the Milim Pro Brass. As I said, this pen comes in a number of different finishes, so if you're not interested in a brass pen, check out the steel. There's a black one as well, which is quite nice, and bronze looks really sharp. So they're all really, really decent pens, and they look great. So yeah, a few sort of hard starts, and I'm wondering if a certain amount of that is ink flow issues. I'm not entirely convinced about the converter. I've had to prime it a couple of times, but if you leave the pen for a couple of days, you might need to prime it. If you're using it consistently, the flow is okay. Just ink tends to get caught up in the top of the converter. Now, I know a lot of converters have agitators to prevent this from happening. This one doesn't have that, so priming it occasionally or flicking the ink down to the nib is sometimes something that needs to be done. Okay, now a couple of other things I wanted to talk about in regards to this pen. Now, this is a lovely pen, and it comes with, as I showed you, the converter, but it also comes with a cartridge, which is lovely. You can buy that on its own, or you can buy it as part of a set. And now the set comes with this, which is a lovely, very cool outer container for something that I think is a really lovely addition. Now, I'll take it out. This is the Inkwell. It's matching Inkwell with the lovely Milim branding there on the top. It has a excellent seal and a glass sort of inner container, and holds a couple of mils of ink, which is great for filling the pen on the go. This is secure. I would have no issues traveling with this. It's rock solid. It's a really lovely addition. It does come at an extra cost, so if you're buying this with the pen, you are going to pay more, and that's to be expected. It's a lovely addition to the pen and the set, and you can sort of see there the difference between the patinaed and the non-patinaed brass there. Obviously they matched when they arrived. So let's talk about the pros and the cons. I'll start with the cons. Firstly, the section. It is a very small section, as I said. It's, you know, it's narrow, and it's got that sort of awkward sort of step down there, which you do feel. Now, you don't feel the threads. The threads, I don't know if they're visible there, are just at the very, very end. So you really don't feel them, but you do feel that step. So that will be a con for a lot of people. There are some flow issues. I think it's sort of to do with the air distribution between the, you know, into the converter. And so this is a very, very small converter, and you can see just there how it seats into the section. This is my other issue with the converter, other than the fact that it's got a small ink capacity, and sometimes ink gets caught up here in the top of the converter, but it's also not very sort of secure. I don't think it'll fall out. I don't think there's enough room for it to fall out. It's not going to come dislodged, but it really isn't very secure. So something to think about. You know, I don't know if there's if you want to try other converters in this pen, if you get it, but it's what you get with the pen, and it's what I have here to review. Balance is an issue if you hold the pen down low, but if you hold the pen slightly further back, the balance actually feels really quite nice. Okay, I forgot to mention this before, so I'm just going to sort of slide it in here. One thing I think is interesting about this pen is that it doesn't have a clip. Now, okay, that would totally put out the design of the pen, and we know that the Kaweco Lilliput doesn't have a clip, and there are lots of pocket pens that don't. Here is my issue with that. If you're hoping to carry this pen with something like a traveler's notebook, or put it into your pocket or something like that, a clip is really handy, and there is no way to attach one on this model. With the Traveller's pocket fountain pen, it comes with a clip, but the clip can be taken off by unscrewing the little lanyard hook there, which I have now dropped on my floor, and you put the lanyard hook back in, and you have no clip. But there's nothing on this pen to attach it. There's no lanyard, there's no clip or anything. So that's going to be a deal breaker for some people. I don't mind necessarily, but if you're hoping to attach this to something, you'd want to have a really secure pen loop or elastic pocket or something to put it in without any clip or lanyard hole. Let's talk about the pros now. So the design is a pro. I really like it. I like the minimalism of the design, and I really like the minimal branding. I think the build quality is fantastic. I think the ink pot at the extra cost is really awesome. This is one of my favorite parts of this entire setup. I would use this for other pens if you can make sure that obviously that you get enough depth into the ink pot to fill up from the nib, but it's a really nice addition. I think it's very, very classy, and once again, beautiful build quality. The threads on this pen are great. It's really quite a decent pen, beautifully made. As I said, reliable, strong, robust, excellent. So let's talk money. How much does this pen actually cost? Well, the different finishes all cost different amounts. So I won't go into the others. I'll just talk vaguely about the cost of this particular model. So these pens are available, as I said, on Etsy, and I'll link to their Etsy page below. This pen, the brass version, on its own, costs about 100 Australian dollars. So it's not inexpensive. It is a little more expensive than the Kaweco, but they are made in more minimal numbers. And I think there are less expensive versions than the brass. To buy the set with the ink pot, the price jumps up to about 195. So Australian, that is. So you're paying about $95 for the ink pot. Is it worth it on its own? I wouldn't necessarily think that $95 for this ink pot, but the set at 195 is pretty good. It is on the pricier end, but I think you get a lot for your money, and if it's a sort of pen that you are interested in, the design and the size and the portability of it and the strength, I think it's actually pretty good. So basically, to summarize, this is a good looking pen. It's simple, it's effective, it's mostly pretty reliable. When the converter's full, you get less flow issues, obviously, but as long as there's ink getting down to the nib, it tends to write pretty well. It will dry out after a few days, but it's nothing that sort of, as I said, a couple of scribbles on a page aren't going to fix. Well, that was the Milim Pro brass fountain pen. Yeah, an interesting little pen, and I think a really nice inclusion in this pocket pen market. I think it's got a lot going for it. I think it's pretty good value considering the amount of them that are produced. This isn't a mass-produced, mass-run item. They're done in sort of smaller quantities, and I think that's great. So if you're interested in this pen, check out their social media stuff, Facebook and Instagram and all that. And the pens are available on Etsy, so I've linked that down below if you're interested in getting one. As I said, check them out. I think they're really good value. I think that they're really interesting pens, and well worth, as I said, a really good addition to the market for these sorts of pens. So if you found this video useful, if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter. I am at @the_offstage_me. And get in touch if there are products you think I should be looking at, or if you've got questions or any information about any of the stuff that I cover in my videos. Please also feel free to get in touch if there's any products or any way you'd like to support this channel. I'm always looking for ways to expand the content that I am able to produce. So get in touch and let's see what we can do. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.